Hey, how's it going, friends? Welcome to VR Revelations. Once again, please make sure you give this video a like and make sure you subscribe for future coverage. So, it is April 14, the year of our Lord 2023, and it looks like Ukraine is retreating from Bakhmut, which is not surprising. Of course, we just had official U.S. government leaks, right? That pretty much stated what we already knew, that Russia is winning the conflict and Ukraine is losing, and that Ukraine is going to continue to lose support. Other nations are going to lose interest, since it's pretty much inevitable that Ukraine will lose, since they really can't overcome Russia, peradventure a complete invasion by the United States, NATO, and all the supporting countries. But that's not going to happen for fear of a global nuclear war, so that was never the objective. And so that's the reason that the West has been supplying enough weapons to keep Ukraine in the fight, but not actually give them a chance to win. Now, I know that a lot of people are in disbelief at these leaks, at what is being revealed here, since they pretty much take everything the U.S. says verbatim, right? They believe all the lies, they believe everything the mainstream media tells them, and they really haven't learned from the past, nor are the majority of people able to discern what is really going on, because they really don't look into the matter. They kind of just repeat what CNN and all these mainstream media news outlets are saying. Now, concerning the leaks here and the arrest of this young man who reportedly leaked these documents, I've seen a couple of people talk about this. Some of them have speculated that the U.S. possibly released these leaks on purpose, which again aren't revealing anything surprising. It's just sort of letting us know that behind the scenes the U.S. knows that Russia is in fact winning, that Ukraine is losing, and that the war is not going good at all for Ukraine. And so the theory here is that the U.S. didn't know how to pull out of the conflict, so they might have intentionally released these documents in order to give themselves an off-ramp, right, to get out of the conflict. And so that's definitely a possibility. Was this young man in on the conspiracy here? Anything is possible. Could he have been baited into obtaining these documents and then leaking them? That's also a possibility. But either way, theories aside, what these documents and the arrest confirm is, again, what we already knew, that Russia is winning and that Ukraine doesn't have a chance at actually defeating Russia unless, the US and England and all these other countries went into Ukraine, but then we're talking about the end of the world. So, as I've been saying since the beginning, that was never the objective of the United States. Their objective was to destabilize the region, to try to inflict as much damage to Russia, to isolate them from the world economy, and it absolutely backfired. So these leaks could definitely, they could have definitely been released on purpose. But again, we don't really need to speculate about them. At the end of the day, they're just revealing what we already knew, right? That Ukraine is losing the conflict, right? And in a terrible way. And so we have more news now being reported by pretty much all your favorite mainstream media news outlets. The Associated Press, Russian forces bear down on Ukrainian defenders in Bakhmut. Reuters, which we're going to be reading, Ukraine forces pull back as Russia mounts re-energized Bakhmut assault, the UK says. Radio Free Europe trying to put a positive spin here on the headline. Ukraine pounds Russian positions near Bakhmut as Moscow forces gain ground. Ukraine, DW, this is the German news outlet. Russia has re-energized Bakhmut. The Seattle Times, Russian forces bear down on Ukrainian defenders in Bakhmut. The Euronews, even the Wall Street Journal here. Wagner and the Russian army cooperate in fresh push to take Bakhmut. So again, we've been saying for weeks that Bakhmut was done for. Again, a lot of the naysayers or people that take in all the mainstream news propaganda didn't want to admit this, much like Solidar. They were trying to poke fun at Russia's slow advance into Bakhmut. Again, it's already been stated that this was a strategy by Russia. Why push? Why try to create a deadline for you when the enemy is coming to you and you can just continue to destroy them as they come? But now the Ukrainian forces are being depleted and the slow advancement of the Russian army has taken its toll. And again, I know all of you who watch these videos in order to try to rebuke what is being said might not like this, but again, every article I use here is from the Western mainstream media, so this is them reporting on it, right? But again, it's nothing surprising, guys. Now, before we look at this article, let me go ahead and open one of the maps here so we can go ahead and take a look at the situation on Bakhmut. You can go find this map on Google. Just type in Ukraine war map. This is the second map that I like to use. Now, if we look here, we can clearly see that Bakhmut is done for. There's articles out there mentioning that the remaining soldiers don't really have a good way of escape here. And so, yes, we see Bakhmut is, it's been taken over, essentially, guys. The Ukrainian forces there are just continuing to get destroyed. We see Avdiivka over here facing a similar fate, being surrounded. And again, on top of all of this, we see these leaks of the U.S. admitting, their pessimistic view for Ukraine. And so I can imagine Zelensky, he must be really worried about his future specifically, because I wouldn't say he was too worried about the Ukrainian population. So anyways, let's go ahead and head back over to the Reuters article here and jump right into it. So we can see here, Ukraine forces pull back as Russia mounts re-energized Bakhmut assault, the UK says. London, April 14. Ukraine troops have been forced to withdraw from some territory in the battlefield city of Bakhmut as Russia mounts a renewed assault there with intense artillery fire over the past 2 days, Britain said in an intelligence update on Friday. Russia has re-energized its assault on the Donetsk Oblast town of Bakhmut as forces of the Russian MOD and Wagner Group have improved cooperation. So remember, the West was trying to make it seem like there was conflict between the private military corporation, the Wagner Group, and the official Russian military forces. And so apparently, according to Western sources, the reason they're now advancing here so formidably is because they're working together. It said, referring to Russia's defense ministry and its main mercenary force, the article continues. Ukrainian forces face significant supply issues. Oh, wait a minute. I thought it was Russia that was facing supply issues. But have made orderly withdrawals from the positions they have been forced to concede, Britain's military said in a daily intelligence update. So notice how this news goes under the radar, right, guys? You're not going to see this amplified in the Western mainstream media, right? And that tells you everything you need to know. Wagner has taken the lead on the Russian side in the months-long battle, deadliest of the war, for troops on both sides. Again, according to the leak reports, the casualties for the Ukrainian army are way, way higher than the Russians, which we also suspected, especially since Zelensky stubbornly doubled down on Bakhmut trying to make it seem like an impenetrable, invincible fortress, with reports stating that he deployed a lot of his elite men into Bakhmut and were destroyed. So I don't know what he's going to continue to fight on with. But the mercenary group's leader had complained of poor support for his forces from the regular military. The Ukrainian defense still holds the western district of the town, but has been subjected to particularly intense Russian artillery fire over the previous 48 hours, the British update said. It said Wagner units were now focusing on advancing in the center of Bakhmut, while Russian paratroopers were relieving them in attacks on the city's flanks. Bakhmut, which held around 70,000 people before the war, has been Russia's main target in the massive winter offensive that has so far yielded scant gains despite infantry ground combat of an intensity unseen in Europe since World War II. Again, they like to focus here on the slowness of the advance of the Russians, but again, Russia never said their advance was to their objective was to take Bakhmut as soon as possible. Again, Zelensky and his generals touted it as an impregnable fortress, right? It's probably literally was actually the strongest Ukrainian defense point, right? And it has just been conquered. And from what we're hearing, Russia took advantage of Zelensky's stubbornness, and so they just slowly advanced, while at the same time allowing the Ukrainian soldiers to fall into the death trap there. And so why go to your enemy when they're going to come to you, especially with their elite forces? You would want to take advantage of that. So, but since the West has nothing to report, this is something they like to focus on, right? These little statements here, like, in a massive winter offensive that has so far yielded scant gains despite infantry ground combat of an intensity unseen in Europe since World War II. Again, the gains may be small, but Bakhmut is almost completely conquered, and Zelensky literally said if Bakhmut falls, the supporting nations are going to stop supporting. They're going to become discouraged. The Ukrainian people are going to lose their will to fight. And Zelensky said it himself. He was worried that if Bakhmut fell, Vladimir Putin would be able to go around and tout it as a major victory, which it is, and that Zelensky would be pressured by the U.S., NATO nations, and his own people to essentially ask for peace. And remember, according to the U.S. or what the U.S. was saying before the leaks in Ukraine, they weren't going to settle for peace until they expelled Russia out of all of the territory they've gained, which is now, according to Russia, territory that is legally part of the Russian Federation, which includes, of course, Crimea. So, yeah, everything that's been told by the mainstream media, no surprise, has been a complete lie and deception in order to deceive the public and to continue to garner support for what is going on over there. And, in order to give the elites as much time to make billions out of this conflict and, carry through with their own personal agenda. So again, it's terrible how, all the lies and all the deception, and really it's just sad how people continue to fall for this, right? I mean, you often hear the saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. But in this case, the Western public is, fool me 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, then really shame on you for continuing to fall for all of this. So, Reuters continues here. Ukraine, which is preparing for its own counteroffensive, which has been delayed, had appeared likely to abandon Bakhmut at the end of February, but announced in March it would fight on there, saying Russia was taking higher casualties trying to storm it. So there you have it, guys. Without a doubt, more propaganda will be coming. Again, the West, NATO, all these countries, Ukraine itself, they can't admit the truth, guys. What do you expect them to say? Do you expect them to come out and say, yeah, Russia's completely destroying us. It's obvious that they're going to win this conflict. The world has changed forever. The U.S. is no longer, the big dog on the world stage. They're never going to admit that, guys. We will have the end of the world before any of these people actually admit this. These are rich people, not all of them, but most of them ungodly, stubborn, self-seeking, proud, and so they'll go to the grave believing their own lies. But again, the reality is completely different to, this wishful thinking that they elaborate and spew out to the public. So, again, if by God's grace I'm still here and you are also, in a couple of months, guys, we're going to be reporting on the end of the conflict in favor of Russia, and people will still try and make some sort of excuse. They will still try to deny the reality. But yeah, the cogs, the wheels of God turn slowly but surely, guys. And as I've said before, no nation here on earth is special, right? None of them are righteous. All governments are corrupt. This whole world is corrupt, right? That's what the Bible has told us, that every nation is corrupt, but God still is able to use these corrupt nations to fulfill his word, right? And I believe a lot of the signs are here concerning the end of days. And as I said at the beginning, I was never worried about a World War III scenario taking place over Ukraine, because the U.S. just, first of all, isn't willing to get into a nuclear conflict over Ukraine, just like they aren't willing to do that over Taiwan. They might make it seem like they are willing to, but they won't. And so, eventually we will have a global nuclear war. That's what I believe. I believe that's in accordance to biblical prophecy, but it's not going to take place over Ukraine or Taiwan. Some things still need to develop, and eventually it will reach a point where we will have, nation against nation, all-out nuclear war. Now, I wouldn't want to see that, of course. And so, again, you can't trust what you're seeing. You can't trust what you're hearing. You can't put your faith in any government. You can't put your faith in men. But, you're smart enough, or at least you should be, to discern and to realize that governments have been lying since the beginning of time. And in our day and age, the U.S. is the best of them all, except, the U.S. is no longer what it used to be. And so we see now the rise of China and Russia here. Russia, essentially, when they decided to, stop the NATO encroachment and invade Ukraine, much like Caesar of old in the Roman Empire, he crossed the Rubicon. He changed the world order forever. And, this whole situation has backfired for the U.S. in a monumental historical way. And I think things are going to continue to go downhill from here. So, again, that's going to be it for this report here, guys. Remember, the truth is stranger than fiction. Have a wonderful day, and God bless.